It's still another great day in the city of Harrisburg. We're here today. This is the first public safety briefing under the command of Acting Chief Carter. And certainly he got his hands wet this weekend in an unfortunate situation. And so when something happens to our police officers, we bring high attention to this matter. We had an incident over the weekend, I'm sure most of you know, which demonstrated once again the outstanding level of police work we have here in our city of Harrisburg. Responding to a domestic situation that occurred at 609 Oxford Street between a mother and a son. The mother was severely stabbed several times by her son, who resides at 609 Oxford. She was visiting her son, attending to his needs. Obviously, she was made aware that his mental illness was unstable that day, and so she went to 609 Oxford and got stabbed very severely repeatedly, only to stumble her way out of that house and back over to her house, which is around the corner from him at 2533 North 6th Street, with multiple stabbings in her face and her chest, and was able to call the police from her residence, which was at 2523 North 6th. When the cops arrived at the mother's house, they certainly immediately, quickly got EMS involved to attend to her stabbing wounds and got her out of her house into the care of medical assistance, and then they proceeded to head to the house at 609 Oxford where the incident occurred. When the officers arrived there, the son lunged at the officers and began to stab them repeatedly. Three of our officers were the victims of the attack, of the stabbing, and it was a weapon, a knife that was used to stab our officers. The assailant was tasered when he attacked our officers, but obviously he was at such a volatile state the taser did not respond as it usually does, and they had to tase him again. At that time, they were able to get him under control and to mitigate the situation as best they could, even in their wounded state. They are not life-threatening injuries, but again, they are injuries that would make them unable to perform their duties today. And quite frankly, we don't know when they will be returning to work. They are under treatment from the doctors, and they will be under further treatment, psychological treatment as well. This is a process we go through with our officers when they encounter these types of tragic situations. So we don't know when they will be returning to work, but that's a process that will have to unfold and play itself out as it usually does when our officers are injured. This situation could have risen to a much higher force. Our cops could have used deadly force against this individual, but under their superior training that they receive, they did not use that kind of force. They used restraint, and as a result, were able to get, as I said, the assailant under control. And I thank the officers for using such restraint, because they could have used deadly force as a result of the attack that this person used on 3 officers. So we are proud the officers resolved it without further injury to the officers, also to the assailant, and also equally important to the public. And so I commend the officers for their actions. This particular incident certainly gives rise to the need of the mental health industry, and also to bring rise to the fact that ever since the state hospital has been closed down, which has been quite some time now, we have been really talking to these health agencies who have these individuals under their care and treatment, that more needs to be done because our officers are not trained to be psychiatrists and psychologists. They're trained to be officers, and they often encounter individuals who they are unaware of that are under mental treatment. And obviously this individual has had encounters before with our officers, but never to this violent and volatile state. And so, you know, just again brings rise to the attention and the need for more of a concerted effort, a collective effort for the mental health agencies to come together and find other ways to really penetrate our neighborhoods, because we have an inordinate amount of individuals that are traveling our streets with mental illnesses that often don't take their medication and end up in these kinds of states for our officers to encounter. And so, we hope going forward that this is an isolated situation and it doesn't become an escalating one, but on a daily basis we are having to go to situations where we later find out that this person has mental illness. But again, all officers do get trained in a limited way to mental health situations, and again, that comes with how they can observe an individual's behavior and what type of police actions they should take against that individual. As I said, such was the case that they had to use a great deal of restraint without deadly force because, quite frankly, it could have been worse than what it was for the assailant. So with that being stated, we'll now turn it over to Captain Oates to maybe further elaborate on the situation. I don't know how much more she can elaborate. We just laid out the facts. Also, we'll turn it over to Chief Carter to talk about general police actions, and we'll move forward. And I just wanted to put out that we're going to have a separate press conference on the arrival of our police cars, and a separate press conference on the cameras. As you know, a year ago that I called District Attorney Ed Marsico and asked for funding for cameras. It's been put out in the media recently that the cameras were being installed downtown. We're working very aggressively to have the cameras in other parts of the city. As you know, I called for cameras to be in various sections of the city. We did a tour with the individuals that were competing for the RFP. We finally settled with an applicant, and the funding is coming from the District Attorney's Office, who committed to giving the city funding. When I asked for it a year ago, I'm finally glad that the cameras are now being installed, and we have other sections of the city, and once we get them all installed, we would certainly call for a press conference to announce that great opportunity for our citizens, and hope that it would bring added value to the illegal dumping that's occurring still in our city, and also the violent crimes that are occurring. So again, today won't be any discussions on the cameras or the cars. They'll be on around crime in our neighborhoods and what we're doing and where we are with it. And then we'll have another press conference laying out some of the new strategies we'll be using around crime. And that will be once Chief Carter gets settled in his office. We have a big meeting today at 4 to lay out some of the strategies that we had already been working on around our patrol units and what we do and how to maximize the limited capacity we have. So with that being stated, I'll first turn it over to Chief Carter and then Captain Oates. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to say that I'm proud of the officers, the way that they responded and handled this situation. It was a very hostile situation due to the mental health capacity of this young man. He is known to us. Last month we had an incident with him where we escorted him to the hospital. He was 302 by his family members. I don't know what escalated his behavior this past weekend, but it was to the point where he severely stabbed his mother several times. She was rushed to Hershey Medical Center, and I believe that she's still critical. The officers did the right thing. They acted in a professional manner. We're going to get them all the help that they need. It was a traumatic experience, not only for the individual doing the stabbing, but also to the officers. Yes, we are trained, but we're not mental health doctors. We do the best that we can. We do get training. And myself and Captain Oates were at the scene, and we saw the environment that the incident happened in. It was very dark in this residence. There was no lights on. There was tight quarters. The officers made the right move by not using violent force, deadly force rather. They went hands-on with the individual. Unfortunately, they got hurt, but they did the right thing. I'm going to let Captain Oates outline things for you. Captain Oates.
I think Mayor Thompson outlined it quite detailed. There's really not too much else I can add to it. If anyone has any questions, I can try and address them.
Can you talk a little bit about what could have gone through the officer's thought process, why they did not use deadly force in the situation, kind of what was going on at that time, so how they came to handle the situation the way they did?
I can't say what was going through their mind at that time, but I think their training kicked in, and I believe one of the reasons they didn't use deadly force was because of the close quarters that they were confined to.
Isn't there special training dealing with people with mental illness with police forces. Can you explain that?
The officers receive mental health training in the academy before they hit the street. They also receive mental health training in our yearly updates. And the officers also have received training sporadically throughout the year for mental health issues and mental health training down at Case Management on Cameron Street.
And the whole goal is to de-escalate, right? Isn't that?
It's to make them aware of the situations and the actions of mental health patients, and it gives them a whole variety of issues to look at and what to know how to deal with a mental health patient.
Captain, the chief had mentioned that there had been prior interactions with this man before. We talked to some neighbors down at the scene. One of them told us that he'd actually pulled a pocket knife on his on a neighborhood woman as she was walking home from the store about 2 months prior to this, but he was not arrested. I didn't see any prior police record. Is that correct to your knowledge? Was he taken to the hospital after that incident?
I don't know. I'd have to look into that and let you know. I'm not sure.
Did they try to tase him before they went in the house and they failed, or because the reporter said it looks like they did try to tase him before?
When the officers approached the porch, he came to the door and engaged them with a board. He made gestures like he was going to hit them. One of the officers deployed their taser. He was able to retreat and lock the door. They used force to enter, and that's when the confrontation began. The officers were stabbed, and then he deployed his taser again, and then he was subsequently arrested.
And so when they were stabbed, they were pretty much a scrum.
They were in a very tight, dark, confined area, and that's why they made the decision not to use deadly force.
Fearing they would hurt each other.
Yes.
So how did they get hit? Like, did he come with it? Did they know he was approaching with a knife?
They weren't aware initially that he had a knife. When he came to the door, he had his hands raised, and they didn't see a knife. And then somehow he got a knife during the fight. Like I said, it was dark, it was very confined, and 3 of them ended up getting injured.
Chief, I'm sorry. Chief, I have a question. Could this lead to a policy change in how the response of officers going inside the house instead of just maybe waiting outside or having additional help?
The officers responded correctly. Their actions were correct. They did nothing wrong. This is all about trying to help the individual, although he had just committed a serious crime. This was about helping this individual because we had had prior contact with this person. The inside of the house was so dark, the officers did not know he had this weapon on him. We did not know until after the first officer got stabbed. He yelled out that he's injured, and he fell down. He dropped. The other officers kept up trying to subdue this guy. They were not only physically trying to get him to comply with our words, they were talking to him with voice commands, but he just kept escalating more. The injured officer that went down, he was able to reload his taser, and then he was able to deploy the taser the second time. The individual, he was struck. It was a good strike. At that point, that's when the officer saw that he had this knife. They asked him to drop the knife, and he did that, and he was able to be taken into custody. The whole time, the officers were concerned about not hurting this individual, only subduing him and getting him help. So they acted bravely, they responded correctly, they did nothing wrong.
The chief, you said that they were using verbal kind of
Commands.
mechanism, commands to help
Yes.
calm this Mr. Williams down. Was he saying anything back? You said it was a hectic scene. Was he shouting anything?
I wasn't inside there, so I don't know what he was saying back, but I was told that, he just had this strange look on his face and he was just going wild. I don't want to say crazy, but he was just going wild. Yes, sir.
Do you know from the time the officers got there how long it was before he finally gave up and you guys were able to arrest him?
We're not really sure. We didn't listen to the tapes yet. But it was a couple minutes probably before everything subsided. Right. But a lot of injury can happen in a short period of time in a situation like that where the person is very, very hostile. Yes.
Did you send 3 officers because of your past history with this person? 3 seems so
3
long.
officers responded because of the severity of the call. There was a stabbing. So they responded domestic stabbing. So that's why 3 officers responded, plus a supervisor responded. It was a total of 5 officers there. 2 covered the back door, 3 went into the front of the place.
And what kind of knife was it?
I don't know. I did not see the weapon yet. It's upstairs in our forensics lab, going to be sent out. And another thing that our officers have to be worried about, concerned about, Captain Notes, I talked about this this Sunday. You know, the same weapon was used to stab 4 people. You have contaminants, blood and stuff on there, you know, which could lead to other problems. So we have to make sure that we get the officers the medical help that they need, all the testing and everything like that. And also for the victim's mom, because you got the contamination of blood. They're all stabbed with the same knife. I don't know if it's a rusty blade or what have you. So we have concerns there.
Was he psychotic and then he was yelling out strange statements?
I do not know what he was yelling out. I didn't read anything about him yelling out. I just know that he was acting out.
I heard that there was a dog in that home. Have you?
Yes, there was a dog there by the name of Kiki. I don't know if Kiki was pinned up in the house or anything like that, but Kiki was there. But Kiki did not engage the officers in any way.
One of the neighbors had told us also when we went down to see if the dog was still in a room up there. I heard over the scanner an officer dispatched back to the scene to take care of that. Is it Kiki been taken care of at this point?
Captain Notes and I, we really don't know. We responded to the hospital, obviously, to see about the condition of our officers. So I don't know. If the dog was left behind and if our officers knew about that, I'm sure that they did the right thing and they contacted family members and what have you to make sure that the dog is taken care of. Okay? Thank you.